How's it going, guys? This video is going to be a little bit different than things I've filmed before. This is going to be much more of a casual conversation about photography with you guys, which is something that I think I would like to start doing. This video we're going to see how it goes. Today I want to talk about, I guess you'd call it creative rut or creative burnout, or just plain feeling uninspired. I think this is something that most photographers go through, and I know that I've gone through it more times than I can count in the last 10 years. I've probably been in a rut more than I've been out of a rut. Sometimes for me this lasts a couple of weeks, and sometimes it lasts a year or more. In fact, at one point early in my interest with photography, I actually got into such a bad creative rut that I thought photography wasn't for me, and I sold off all of my camera gear only to come to regret it about a year later, and I had to go back out and start to build up my collection of equipment again. And so since then, and especially now, I'm trying to have a much more balanced relationship with photography, where instead of the ups and downs, it's more of a consistent relationship. Now that doesn't mean that I have to be 100% fully involved in it all the time, but I want to try to avoid the lowest of lows just by being a little more consistent, right? And so in this video I want to talk about some things that have helped me personally when I've been in a rut. Now, just to be clear, right now I'm not in a creative rut. Right now I'm feeling quite motivated, quite interested in photography. And I thought that that was actually the better time to make this video, because I was able to look back on the times that I was in a creative rut and kind of take a deep, hard, long look in the mirror and see, what issues was I having then and how was I able to get myself out of it. And so I've come up with a list of about 10 things that I think might be able to help you if you're in a creative rut. And frankly, this video will serve as something for me to look back on to try to help get myself out of any future creative ruts. So with this being a casual video, I'm going to go ahead and crack a beer here. And I'm going to pour myself a beer to drink while we talk about this topic. God, I'm gonna get so many comments about how terrible of a pour that was. I was just trying not to spill it on camera, but that is probably the worst pour we've had in a while. We won't talk about that. So diving right into this, damn it, diving right into this, I think the first point I want to talk about here with this is that I think the first thing a lot of photographers jump to when they're feeling uninspired is, I need to go buy a new camera, or I need a new lens, right? And I don't think going to buy gear is the solution to fix this problem, right? Sure, maybe you'll get motivated for a couple of days or a week to go use that new gear, but maybe not. There have been times that I've tried to purchase a new lens or a new piece of equipment to get out of a creative rut, and then it's just sat there and collected dust and I haven't used it for 6 months after I buy it, right? I think we all know at this point, if we've been doing this for more than 5 minutes, that having the latest camera or that new generation of the lens you already own, those things aren't going to make your photos any better. Your audience or your viewers of your photography won't even be able to tell a damn difference or know that you bought a new piece of equipment. And so I just don't think that's a good plan to get yourself out of a creative rut. I think there are better ways, right? And so my second point is to not chase attention on social media, right? I want to be clear that we all have probably some form of social media to share our photography, right? Whether it's Instagram, which is seemingly dying off these days, unfortunately, or a website, or Flickr, which is even more dying off, or maybe it's something like YouTube. Maybe you make YouTube videos or just come onto YouTube to interact with other photographers, right? I think that it's important that we don't just take photos with the goal of getting likes and attention on social media. I spent a lot of years doing this, especially when Instagram was kind of more of an image sharing platform than it is now. I would go out and take a photo that I thought was incredible, and if it didn't get hundreds or thousands of likes, I thought it was a failure. If it didn't gain me a bunch of new followers, I thought it was a failure. No matter how happy I was with that photo when I took it, I inevitably ended up thinking that it was a bad photo or failure if other people didn't value it the way that I did, or if social media didn't push it out the way I thought they should. And I can tell you firsthand that that is not a good plan for your mental health, and it's not a good plan to grow as a photographer. It's definitely better to take photos that you personally find value in, and photos that they bring you fulfillment, right? If you take a photo and you really like it, that doesn't mean it's a perfect photo, and if you go ask for constructive criticism somewhere, people are going to point out flaws with it. Every photo has flaws. But if you're happy with it, you should be happy with it even if other people, don't necessarily agree. That's something you created, and you have a right to be proud of it. Now, will you stay proud of it long term as you continue to grow as a creator? Maybe not. But letting other people and social media attention affect your perception of your own work is just a really bad plan overall. And so that's something that can really almost put you into a creative rut, and understanding that will help you to avoid getting into them in the first place. That's been my experience, right? Now I take some photos that I don't even post online. I almost never post landscape photos on Instagram anymore, since my Instagram page has now been converted more to a business page with wedding and portrait stuff. I don't really feel it's appropriate to be mixing my landscape images in with that, because I want to have kind of a clear focus on that profile. But since I've stopped taking photos to please other people and only to please myself, I've been much happier. Moving on to my third point, which kind of relates back to that second one, is that if you're somebody who is thinking about starting a business with your photography to try to make some money on the side, I would tell you to think twice. And now, obviously, as somebody who runs a business, you might say, oh, he's just saying that because he doesn't want as much competition. But listen, most of you guys probably live nowhere near me. And those of you that do are probably not in the same niche as I am, right? And I'm not that big. My business is small. I have a few clients per year. I like it that way. And I'm not really trying to grow it, so I'm not concerned about competition, right? The thing with starting a business is that all of a sudden you start a business and you start making money, and now you start chasing the dollar just like you chased social media clout before. And that can lead to, you're now creating photos that you're trying to create to keep other people interested or to please your client, right? You're trying to make photos that are marketable and make a client happy, which are almost certainly not going to be the same type of creative photography that brings you happiness. And so it's a really hard trap that you fall into. And when I ran a previous business where I focused on trying to make as much money as possible, get as many clients as possible, it turned my hobby and my passion into a job, which is the last thing you want to do, because it takes something that is otherwise a point of stress relief and it makes it into something that causes you stress, right? And that's not something that any of us need. I think we all have enough stress in our daily lives with the pace the world moves right now. And so I don't see anything wrong with keeping photography as a hobby. I think there's an inherent belief that the end goal, if you get good enough at photography, is to make money with it, start a business. And I think a lot of people just feel like that's the natural progression they have to go to. And I just don't believe that's true, right? Now, if you're a landscape photographer or a street photographer and you want to sell some prints here and there of the stuff you're doing for your own pleasure, I wouldn't really classify it as a business. It is, but what I'm talking about here is more of, transitioning into shooting commercial work or weddings, portraits, real estate. Right, eventually all of those things get really repetitive. You're producing kind of boring and repetitive work for clients to keep them happy, and you burn out on that really fast. That's why my business now is targeted at a very specific niche, which is working with adventurous couples for photos in unique and beautiful outdoor locations. I don't have a huge interest in shooting boring indoor weddings. Now I do a few per year here and there, mostly word of mouth for friends and family, people who really want me to, but I don't advertise that, and I turn down a bunch of those all the time because I really want to be, you know, doing mountaintop elopements and going to waterfalls for engagement photos and doing the stuff that I find fun, that brings my passions together with my client work and gets me paid to do the things I enjoy, right? Moving on to the the fourth point. Let me start checking these off so we know where I am. And let me finish pouring this god-awful pour here. For those of you who are not local to the Rochester area, Jenny's Ruby Red Kolsch is my favorite summertime beer. It just came back out and it is phenomenal. I'm very glad that it's back in season. All right, so the first 3 points are kind of things we should avoid or things we shouldn't do. The rest are going to be things we should do to either get out or stay out of a creative rut, okay? And so number 4 is to find a community of other photographers, right? If you're just doing this by yourself all the time, it's going to get kind of boring, more than likely. Some people are into that, but most are not, right? Most people, even if you don't enjoy going out in person, taking photos with other people, want to get online and network with other photographers. And so I would tell you to try to find a community of other photographers whose work you can view and who you can share your work with. Because, you know, talking to other photographers about the creative process and how they made a photo, or sharing how you made a photo and getting some feedback, that's a very valuable way to grow and improve your photography. And I think it's almost imperative to have that. If you're, you know, an artist in a vacuum, you're not really going to be exposed to things that can help you grow as quickly as you otherwise might. And when your growth stagnates, that's often when people tend to get burnt out, right? And so go online, whether it's a Facebook group or a forum or a local camera club. Maybe you have to start something up locally. Maybe you know, get together with a camera shop near you and see if you can start having meetings there or something. We actually have a local group here called Western New York Photo Walkers that I don't know if they still do after COVID, but pre-COVID we're meeting at a local cidery, I believe once a month, and getting together and, you know, sharing images and having guest speakers come in. I only attended a meeting or two of that. I just didn't line up with my schedule, but it seemed to be a really cool group, and I would bet there's something near you. So go out there, find a community, get together with other photographers, and grow together, right? I kind of get sick of seeing people just trash talk each other. Let's build each other up as a community and, you know, come together. That's part of the reason why I'm starting this YouTube channel, or why I've started this YouTube channel, is that I want to grow a community of photographers who have the same interests as me and want to talk about these things together. Naturally, if I'm starting the channel, that leads me as kind of I don't want to say the head of the community, because I really am not interested in being that. But I don't know that there's a lot of other photographers out there, at least now, that are leading groups that have my exact combination of interests in Fujifilm cameras, outdoor adventure, landscape photography, you know, weddings and portraits. I'm sure there are, but most channels I find don't exactly fit my interests, and so I'm kind of just going to carve one out here, and if you guys are interested, then great, come along for the ride. Maybe this channel gets 500 subscribers and maybe it gets 50,000. I have absolutely no idea. That's not what it's about. I just want to find people who, you know, vibe with me and can grow with me together. So if that's you, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. I guess I had to plug that somewhere in the video. And let's move on to point 5. My 5th point is to get on YouTube and watch some videos, right? Now, obviously I run a YouTube channel. I have a slight vested interest, not that I make any money at this right now, in telling you to do that. But here's the thing, YouTube is a great place to find a community. You can find photographers who, you know, are into your type of photography, whether that's me or probably more likely somebody else. And then you can find them on Instagram and, you know, interact with them on social media and use them for inspiration. A lot of people are really good at commenting back, answering questions, and, you know, helping the people in their community grow. And I encourage you to find those creators who, you know, align with your desires and views. But I would tell you to try to find a balance here. There's a fine line between, watching some videos on occasion to try to get inspiration or motivation or break yourself out of a rut, and sitting on the couch all day for a whole weekend doing nothing but watching YouTube videos about photography, but never actually picking your camera up and heading outside, right? At some point you've got to turn off YouTube, go outside and take photos. Otherwise you're not going to grow, you're just going to watch other people grow. And so, I'm guilty of this at times. I can spend a whole Saturday watching Thomas Heaton walk across landscapes and take photos, and I love to do so. I get a lot of inspiration and enjoyment out of that. But ultimately, what I really enjoy about it is that it inspires me to pick up my own camera gear, drive out to the mountains, and create some images of my own, right? And so you can use YouTube as motivation and inspiration. Just don't go too far down the rabbit hole and never get out from in front of your TV or your computer or your smartphone, right? And so I think that's it for the 5th point. Moving on to number 6. Let yourself take a break, right? There's so many people out there who think, oh my God, I'm burnt out. I can't possibly step away or take a break. I've got to, put my head down and force my way through this. Newsflash, if this is just a hobby and you don't have a client booked this weekend for a wedding that you have to be there, you in fact can put your camera down, put it in the cabinet or in your bag, set it down and walk away for a few weeks and take a break. There's no shame in that, there's nothing wrong with that, and we all need to recharge from time to time. I've learned sometimes that if I don't have an interest in picking my camera up, if I just forget about it and go live life, do other things for a while, within a few weeks or a month, I will find my interest and want to naturally go pick up that camera again in most cases, right? And so while you take this break, I would encourage you to, not just sit on the couch and watch TV. Some of that is certainly good, but not too much. Go out there and do some other creative endeavors. Get into other hobbies, right? When I'm not doing photography, I'm out hiking, mountain biking, down in my basement woodworking and building furniture. I've got all kinds of different interests and hobbies, and truthfully, probably too many. I could live for 500 years and still want to learn a new hobby at the end of it. That's who I am. I tend to bounce around between hobbies a lot, but I do find value in setting down photography, which is my primary hobby, and spending some time doing other things to refresh my mind. Another thing you might try while you're taking your break, or even just trying to consistently do throughout time, is to get out for some exercise, right? Go for a jog, lift some weights, go for a walk, whatever you're able to do. Getting your body moving is just always good for your mental health. It's never good to sit around too much. I think we all know this at this point, but even I find myself, I will admit that today I've spent most of the day on the couch being lazy when I should have been, outside doing something active, even if it was just yard work or walking my dog. And I actually have an entire video that I'm working on soon about the benefits of fitness as it relates to landscape photography. So stay tuned, that'll be coming out probably in the next month or two. It's kind of on the back burner, but I'm working on it. So let yourself take a break was the last point. Moving on to the next, which I believe is 7. It's important to recognize that creative ruts or burnout or lack of motivation, whatever we're calling this whole thing, is normal, right? This is a cycle, and for me I would almost call it like the creative cycle of photography, where my interest comes up and then eventually it dips back down and comes up again, and it's just kind of the never-ending cycle, and it moves at different speeds sometimes. It jumps around a little bit, but I don't think it's realistic to expect that you will just always be the same interest that you have. I think it's normal that your creativity and your motivation will wax and wane as time goes on. And I think it's important to recognize that, when you're on a high, that means a low is probably coming eventually, and maybe you should prepare for that and start thinking about things ahead of time, like I'm doing now, as to how you might break out of it when you get there. And more importantly, when you're down in a low, when you're in that creative rut or you're feeling burnt out, it's important to recognize that that's just a season and it will end eventually, right? It's not gonna last forever. And so take that chance or take that time to go do something else like we talked about. Focus on yourself and, you know, pick up the camera when you're feeling refreshed and ready to do so. It won't last forever, and it's important that you recognize that. So moving on to number 8, this is probably my favorite way to break out of a creative rut. And that's to go out without a camera to the places you would normally take your camera to go photograph things, right? If you're a landscape photographer and you have some local spots that you frequent to take photos and you're feeling burnt out, leave the camera home, go out there and take a walk in nature. If you're a street photographer, you know, leave the camera home and go for a walk around the city. There's actually a state park near my house that I walk my dog at a lot, and it is incredible. I've truly, and I mean this, never taken a photo there that I've been happy with. In fact, it's 10 minutes from my house, and I never go there for photography anymore, because every time I go with my camera, I have never found an image there, and now I feel like I'm challenging myself publicly to change this, so I guess I'll have to try that soon. But every time I go there with my wife or my dog and I'm not carrying a camera, it is inevitable. I can guarantee you that I will see 100 different things that I think would make great images. Something about going there with the camera in my hand, I get tunnel vision or I get a mental block, I don't know what it is, but I lose that creative vision sometimes. So, you know, leaving the camera at home or in the car and going for a walk around these places just allows you to view them in a different way. You don't go in with a preconceived notion of the photo you might be looking for. You walk around, you take in the sights and sounds, and you see things you otherwise might not, which can really help you to, you know, break the cycle and start to feel creative again. I've done this more times than I can count. I remember one specific time that I was feeling pretty uninspired, and I went and walked through a state park, Stony Brook State Park down in Dansville, that is known for having beautiful waterfalls. There's actually a video on my channel about me photographing it from a long time ago. I'll put a card up here so you can go check that out if you'd like. But I went there without my camera one time, and I walked the entire thing. I walked the gorge trail, the rim trail up both sides. I probably spent 5 hours hiking around this park, and just enjoying the nature and the beauty of it made me feel inspired to not necessarily go back there with a camera, but it reminded me of how beautiful nature can be when you go out and just spend time in it, and it made me want to go pick my camera up and start documenting that again when I hadn't done so in a few months, right? And so this is something that I would encourage you to try out if you haven't done it before. I think you might be surprised at how well it works. Stepping on to point number 9. If you're anything like me, and you might be, you might not be, but I work so much better under pressure with a deadline. At my full-time job, if I go to work and I don't have a plan and a deadline and give myself, you know, a goal of I want to get this done by this time, I am useless. But if I set a deadline and I have goals that I want to, you know, finish doing X by this time, I'm infinitely more productive. It is amazing how much I can get done in 2 hours if I set the goal of having it done in 2 hours, right? Now, when it comes to creative things, being under heavy pressure isn't always the best, and so this might not work for you all the time, and it might not work for you at all. But for me personally, having some form of a deadline on my creative endeavors has proven to be quite beneficial for me, because it forces me to get up when I'm feeling maybe not uninspired, but lazy at the very least. For example, right now it is 11 o'clock at night, and I could be one room over sleeping. But I'm doing this because I have a deadline I need to meet, that I want this video done in time to go out next week. And so I've got to get it done. My schedule doesn't allow another time to do it, right? Now, one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel was straight up to give myself deadlines for my work, right? If I have to have a video done by next Tuesday, for example, then I feel some pressure and some motivation to get it done. Now, I'm not going to beat myself up if it doesn't happen. There's no penalty. It's not the end of the world. But I find that I like to work with just that little bit of extra pressure on me, and it does help me. So maybe try giving yourself deadlines. Maybe you'll find that it helps you. Maybe it won't, but at least you'll have tried and you'll know the answer, right? And moving on to my 10th and final point, which is that sometimes, and this is going to be unpopular with some of the mental health people who, are going to say don't force yourself, you shouldn't just, force it or pull yourself up by the bootstraps, that kind of thing. Sometimes though, when you're feeling uninspired and not creative, you just got to pick the damn camera up and get outside and go try to create some photos, right? Sometimes you just have to push through the adversity of not feeling inspired and motivated and go create something. Sometimes for me, just the act of creating something, even if it's not good, even if it's the worst photo I've ever taken, the process of getting out and creating something and getting my mind working in that way again, sometimes that in itself is enough to break me out of the creative rut. And so get out there, force yourself to go try to make a photo, and I think that sometimes that will help. In fact, I would tell you that most of my favorite photos that I have from, through the years, maybe not most, many of my favorite photos have come from times when I didn't want to get out of bed, when I wasn't feeling motivated or inspired or didn't want to go for whatever reason, right? Whether I was unmotivated or the weather was bad, it was too cold out. When I've overcome that adversity and gone out to create a photo, I often get rewarded with photos that I'm much happier with than I would have expected, and in many cases they've landed in my portfolio. In fact, I'll throw a couple of those photos up on the screen here now for you to see. These are all photos that I took when I was feeling definitely not motivated, and I would say maybe even a little bit burnt out. And they helped to break me out of creative rut, and they're in some of my favorite photos now, right? And so that's all I have for you on my list here. That's all 10 points that I, pre-thought of when I looked at what has worked for me and what's affected me. But I did come across, I did a little bit of very preliminary research for this video, and I did come across a quote that I want to leave you guys with. I'm going to end the video on this quote, and so I do want to take a moment now to tell you guys that my name is Destin. I'm a landscape and adventure portrait photographer here in Rochester, New York. And this YouTube channel is my attempt to build a community around people with similar interests as me. If that's you, please like, comment, subscribe, jump in. You don't need an invitation, but jump in, become a part of this community, and let's grow something special here together, right? And now I'm going to leave you guys with this quote. This quote is by Ira Glass. I believe he worked for NPR. I don't know the exact background, but I've seen this quote a few times in the past, and it's always really been beneficial to me. And so it says, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good, it has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you." A lot of people never get past this phrase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting, creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you're just starting out or you're still in this phase, you gotta know it's normal, and the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you will finish one story. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's gonna take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just gotta fight your way through. Ira Glass. With that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you even a little bit or brought you some entertainment. Cheers and have a great day.